Welcome to Inside the Channel, empowering partners with Sophos Incident Response, brought to you by Sophos, a podcast where we discuss trends in the channel today. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson from the Channel Company. My guest today is Marty Ward from Sophos. We'll learn how Sophos Incident Response Services enables partners to address active threats and extract insights to prevent similar issues in the future. Marty, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kenna. It's great to do this. I really enjoy it.
Segment 1, Incident Response for today's cybersecurity landscape. Marty, how do you define incident response?
It's a great question, and I think it's a forest for the trees question, right? Too many people, I think, look at the tree right in front of them and say, incident response just means responding to an active attack. And we think that's too myopic, too small of a definition for incident response. We view it as everything from prevention, full remediation, and cleanup of an incident if it does occur, as well as making changes to make sure things never happen again. So we define it really in three probably areas: reducing risk of an incident ever occurring through attack surface reduction, penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, things like this, to make sure you have the best policies and best practices in place. That includes active management of detections and alerts, leveraging all the tools and expertise you have in place to find the signals amongst the noise. It also includes minimizing impact if an incident does occur, right? So immediate identification and neutralization of active threats, being able to reduce the time between a compromise and ultimate remediation. It's really a race against time, right? People have seconds and minutes to try to get you back up and running as fast as possible. And that's what we're trying to enable for our partners and ultimately their customers. And then finally, it's all about, sometimes it's about transferring risk to the third party. And from a customer sense, that might mean transferring risk to you, the MSPs and the partners, because customer realizes they don't have all the expertise in-house. They might not be able to retain them or train them or even recruit them. And so they're leveraging you to minimize and mitigate their risk by managing their environment for them. It also could mean cyber insurance, right? That if something does occur, they don't have the ability to pay for it. So cyber insurance will mitigate that risk so you can transfer it to a third party. So we think about it that broadly as far as incident response.
What are some of the top threats you're seeing today?
There's a lot, and we keep track of this all the time. But as you know, ransomware continues to dominate the news. Although there's a new version of ransomware out these days, and it's the one we're seeing most often. It's called remote ransomware or remote encryption. We're seeing it all the time now. It's really unique because traditional ransomware will try to put a program or an executable on your device and encrypt, files and data from there. Remote ransomware will encrypt from the cloud. So it's unique in that the attackers know that ransomware, the traditional ransomware, can be detected by a lot of endpoint security solutions because they're looking for that behavior to encrypt on disk. And doing it from somewhere else is only covered by 2 companies in the entire world, and us being one of them. And so everyone else is just trying to detect it after the fact and hopefully clean up as fast as possible. So very dangerous and very prevalent these days. The other thing we're seeing a lot of is active adversary attacks. It's been very popular the last few years. Just exploiting common desktop and admin tools, right? Compromising credentials of you and me, compromising admin credentials. It's very common. It's usually stopped by behavioral techniques and even credential blocking techniques. So there's a lot of ways to block it, but it's still a very common threat. And then finally, what we're seeing recently is a lot of token and API abuse. So this is kind of an offshoot of identity-based threats where phishing and malware will continue towards intercepting session and token data, and even trying to bypass multi-factor authentication. So a lot of that's popping up recently. So a lot of diversity in our threats these days.
Why is it crucial for organizations to minimize the time between the initial compromise and remediation?
You and I know it's obvious to everyone listening to this podcast because they deal with it day in and day out, but not so much to your customers who don't live in our world perhaps all the time. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's a race against time. And I'll just bring up some stats as to why you have to move so quickly. We do a lot of research, including putting honeypots all around the world. And one of the pieces of research we've done is when you bring a new device online, and a lot of us are working remote these days, if you're not behind the firewall, not behind a network security perimeter of any sort, if you bring a new device online, it takes about a minute before automatic malware bots will start to attack your device. So that's how much time you have for IT bringing a new device online. If an attacker does make their way into your organization, You have less than a day before they get to the Active Directory, in which case they're looking for high-value targets, and they're looking how they can move around and find the best intellectual property. So very short time frame. And this becomes all more prevalent when you realize 66%, 2/3 of all organizations were hit with a ransomware attack last year. And so nearly everyone's getting hit. And 90% of ransomware actually happens outside of working hours. So they know that IT might not be there, depending on the business, and they'll attack at night and on weekends. And that's where you're already losing time, because if no one's there to see it, you're already losing time against a potential attack. So this is why you need to move quickly.
As you said, time is crucial. But why do some organizations take too long to react to a security incident?
It's really threefold, Kenna. It's lack of understanding, alert fatigue, or maybe lack of an incident response plan. So the lack of understanding just comes in, from a lack of experience. Maybe they don't have the awareness, and so they might not understand the sense of urgency associated with a particular alert, because they don't understand that versus any other particular alert, especially if it's coming in on the weekend or at night, like we were just talking about. They may go, I'll deal with that tomorrow, when they don't realize it's a really, serious threat and they need to deal with it now. The other is alert fatigue. The team may know exactly what they're doing, but they see so many alerts and they collect so much data that they're not sure how to find the signal in the noise. And they're just tired of all the alerts and they don't notice the one that's really important. So they lack visibility and context, and they're not sure how to move forward. And the final one is just not planning for it. Very experienced teams, very experienced customers, very experienced partners. We're all doing the best we can. And sometimes people just don't put an incident response plan in place. And as everyone on this podcast knows, they have a lot of customers that probably do not have an incident response plan. The good news is we're going to give you one. If you don't have one that you can give to your customers, we've got a link. We're going to give you one. You can use it to work with your customers to build one.
Why is it insufficient to only treat the symptoms of a detected threat?
Another thing that's obvious to people on this podcast, but not to their customers, is the symptom is only what you can see, right? You really want to discover the root cause, get the disease under the symptom, right? So when a threat is detected, right, the first thing you do is triage the situation, triage the immediate attack. And you're looking for, the executables, the malware remnants that, block the Trojan, block the attack, whatever you can do. And a lot of people will stop there thinking, we've done it. We've disrupted the attack. We've stopped the attack. They haven't really solved the root cause. So you have to kind of not only remove the malware, detect the incident, but you got to go deeper. You got to find all the remnants. You got to find where the attacker might be going, what's next. And, the incident response team needs to ensure that they can address the root cause of the original incident. Because the attacker might still have a foothold and maybe moving around, and maybe this was just a distraction that you found.
It brings us to segment 2, Sophos Incident Response Services. How do Sophos Incident Response Services quickly identify and neutralize various threats?
Well, Kenna, the good news is the first thing I'm going to qualify is quickly. And so the average response time for incident response, according to Gartner, is 16 hours. That's averaged across all sorts of businesses, all sizes of businesses. So the good news is our average response time is 38 minutes. And we work with hundreds of thousands of customers around the world. So 38 minutes is about 96% faster than the average. And so that's something people are probably looking for, right? You want to minimize that time to be able to, between compromise and attack, or between initial indicators and a potential breach. So we do that through proactive expertise. Hundreds of security analysts and operators around the world. We operate 24/7. And we have over 20,000 customers just using our incident response services. And we support all our MSPs and our partners through these services. We don't sell anything direct. So we're just selling these services through our partners. And because this team is so experienced and so enabled with this broad of an audience, they've been able to automate processes already and improve our protection processes and frees them up for more time to do proactive threat hunting in environments that may have nothing going wrong, but they can look around to see if there is. Also gives them tremendous context. We have context from about 600,000 customers, telemetry from 600,000 customers, and hundreds of millions of endpoints, as well as our threat intelligence feeds. And not just our threat intelligence feeds, but we share them across the industry with a lot of other vendors. And that visibility provides us huge context to be able to identify quickly and remediate those threats. And then finally, with innovation, with all that context, you need to be able to find the needle in the haystack. And so we have several artificial intelligence capabilities to be able to prioritize all the detections and figure out the ones that matter the most so that people can open cases and start investigating those. We also have adaptive protections that enable our protections to elevate themselves in the event of an issue, maybe automatically isolate a system, or maybe put up extra defenses. We also have something called critical attack warning, which when it notices through correlations and through indicators of compromise that something's going on in an environment, it will automatically warn the customer that you have an immediate issue that needs to be addressed, and then that customer can take action. This is actively prevented in that active ransomware attacks, hijacked accounts. It's even detected penetration tests by some of our customers, which was a good situation because nothing was going wrong. We just happened to notice anomalous activity. And they were like, thank you. That was a good test to figure out that this actually works. So those are some of the differentiators.
Let's dive a little deeper. What are some of the tools used and key features of your incident response services?
We should start with a brief overview of our incident response portfolio, and it's really threefold. Our proactive managed detection and response service, 24/7, proactively monitoring and looking for threats in the environment and detections, and then opening cases and investigations and remediate anything it finds. And that service is available through our partners. We obviously have the partners who resell us, or the partners who use that service as a backend to help them support their own MDR services. It's also available through the MSP Flex program. So we have MSP pricing for those MSPs who prefer to be invoiced that way. Then we have our rapid response program, which is usually non-Sophos customers who come to us saying, I have an active incident and I need immediate help. And we go in and we obviously identify that threat, triage it with the customer, figure out how far it's gone, how far it's spread, eliminate the complete threat, eliminate the remnants, do some post-activity cleanup, and even improve their environment. And then we monitor that environment for 45 days. And that's all part of the service. We don't charge by the hour. That's just a flat fee service. Now, what's interesting about our rapid response is 2/3 of those new prospects become customers because they decide, you know what, I don't want the monitoring to ever stop. So please keep monitoring my environment. Third area is compromise assessment. Sometimes people need us for various reasons. It could be governance, risk, and compliance. It could be mergers and acquisition, but they need to determine if someone's ever been in their environment or if they have an active attack going on right now. And so because of that, our compromise assessment service does exactly that very quickly, right? It's able to go into an environment, detect if there ever has been an attack or if there's an active one going on and how far has it gone. Or it can also prove that there hasn't been an attack, which is great for risk and compliance and audits. So that's another service that's available. So all of those are key parts of our portfolio, and they leverage key tools and services like intelligent threat detection, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. All three of those services have proactive response built in, and then the hundreds of experts that I've talked about earlier. So we're always looking for the best outcome for our partners and our customers.
What is the significance of complete visibility in incident response for your partners?
Well, it's obviously critical to have complete visibility and obviously accurate visibility. So you want the right high quality data to accurately identify those potential indicators of compromise. You need to collect all the right high fidelity signals, is I guess the way I would call it. In the past, people have collected a bunch of logs, maybe in a SIM type approach, some sort of log collection, or they collected threat data is another way of going about it, or a hybrid of both. But sometimes people collect too much data, right? And then they don't know how to find that needle in the haystack. And so they struggle with that. It's important to collect a lot of data. You want to be comprehensive about it. You just want to be able to find the signal. So we actually collect a ton of data ourselves. And then we use a lot of tools and correlation and artificial intelligence to be able to hone down to get the right detections. We actually go through 31 billion events a day to be able to find the signal amongst the noise. So that's where we're applying a lot of context, right? So there's a saying amongst incident response professionals that content is king, but context is queen. And both are necessary to run effective incident response programs. So you need to be able to apply that metadata into the environment to find the best signals and prioritize the signals that matter so you can block the earliest possible stage of an attack.
Does Sophos compromise assessment minimize the time between the initial incident and threat remediation for MSPs and their customers?
That's what it's built for. It's built to accelerate that whole environment and as fast as possible, identify an ongoing attack or an existing attack or an activity in your environment, enable the organization to take swift, decisive action, right? And it's delivered by that same broad team of security analysts and operations experts that I talked about. Identify the indicators of compromise and any potential compromised assets, quantify that risk to the organization, and then provide detailed guidance on what to do about it, what actions need to be taken to eliminate the threat and the root cause and everything involved. And then from there, they have a choice, right? They could say, you have an active attack and we've confirmed it. You might want to take a look at some rapid response capabilities, or you don't have any signs of a breach, and in which case you might want proactive monitoring, and you can take a look at the MDR service, the Managed Detection Response Service.
That brings us to segment 3, collaborating with Sophos. How does Sophos Incident Response provide immediate expert assistance to MSPs?
We love our partners, we love our MSPs, and we're just here to be an extension of your team, right? We want to provide additional security expertise without you having to add headcount. We offer this in one of many different ways, right? So if you currently do not offer any managed detection response or incident response services, you can, one, resell our service, right? It's probably the fastest way to get a new security operations center up and running within your customer environments and your prospect environments. 24/7 monitoring and response. You can increase your margin without adding any headcount. Our team proactively detects and stops all those threats more than security products can do on their own. And your customers can leverage their existing investments, right? They don't have to swap out their endpoints or swap out their network. We support dozens and dozens of third-party environments as well, so not just our own. And so this sets them up well to qualify it for cyber insurance as well, including discounted premiums. So that's one way. The other way is if you currently do offer managed detection response or incident response service, we can extend your team with additional expertise. So we can build a very collaborative team, additional capabilities that we might offer that you don't currently offer in detection response. Maybe we support additional vendors you don't support currently. We could extend your service to 24/7 if you're only servicing them 12 hours a day or 9 hours a day or whatever it is. It can also extend you to other geographies. If you're not servicing every state or every country, we are. So we can extend you in many ways and free up your team to perhaps do some other revenue generating services. Maybe you want to start your own threat hunting service. We'll do the back-end firefighting and you can start up a threat hunting service. And then the third option is really a hybrid, depending on how you want to grow your business. You could actually start up your own MDR service or incident response service with our XDR platform and manage it yourselves. It's used by over 60,000 customers worldwide, some MSPs, some customers used by us. It's the same platform we use across all our services. You can use it to build your own service. So any of these options are great. We'll support you in any of them.
What distinguishes this full-scale emergency incident response service?
I'm going to focus on the full-scale part of the incident response. We'd like to say we put the R in incident response, but so many vendors just focus on monitoring and notifying. So as mentioned, our response is about 96% faster than the average, according to Gartner. And we are full-scale, unmetered incident response. So there's no hourly limit, although you're welcome to charge for this service however you want to your customers. But there's no hourly charge from our end. And you can leverage your customers' existing and technology investments. And if there's an active incidents, our rapid response service can mitigate that. Again, that's a one-time flat fee. So you could charge hourly, you could charge a flat fee, whatever you want to do. But we combine that with all our threat intelligence and everything we have. And then finally, I'll mention that we are a 100% channel company. So we do not sell anything direct. Everything we do is built for you and to go through you. And we're here to help you build your businesses. And I'll also mention that one of our top requests from MSPs is to white label our MDR service. And I'll just say this, we hear you.
Marty, how does the Sophos Incident Response strengthen the partner-client relationship?
We help you strengthen your partner-client relationship in multiple ways here, I'll say. One is you can increase their threat and cyber intelligence because we're going to give you things like this incident response planning guide. They use or you use our managed detection response service. They also are invited to an automatic monthly threat cast where they get the latest update on threats and how to remediate those and address those. We also provide weekly and monthly reports to you or to them, however you prefer, and you can share with them to show your customers proof of value of the service you're delivering. And so that's one area. The other thing is you deliver them better, safer, better protected environments because with the health checks built into the product that you can actually turn into services, and some of our MSPs do. Prevention of future incidents and immediate recovery from an active incident. So all these ways that you better protect their environment and prevent them from downtime, less risk, less breaches, and ultimately you're saving them money. So they're leveraging your expertise and your services instead of hiring someone themselves. We've had someone tell us that the managed detection response service was 1/6 the cost of hiring a person to do it themselves, and they get 24/7. So it's something they probably would not have got if they hired themselves. So the benefit to you really is you're going to end up with much more loyal customers. They're going to view you, of course, as the trusted advisor, and that's going to lead to increased business.
Marty, how can we learn more?
Well, we've got a whole set of links that I could send you. Everything on threat landscape that I've talked about came from a bunch of different reports, like our active adversary report, our state of cybersecurity, state of ransomware. We can give you more information on our partner program, incident response, and even our incident response services. And again, we're here to support you, and we're here to offer these services through you. So we're not going around you or selling direct. Happy to send those to you, Kenna, or send them to all the attendees, but happy to share these links.
Marty, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Kenna. Really enjoyed it.
That concludes Inside the Channel, empowering partners with Sophos Incident Response, brought to you by Sophos. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson. See you next time.